Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, January the 15th, 2019. Good to have you all here for our first of two shows this week, a very big week on the show here. We're coming at you for an earlier time, not as early as I would have liked. We're running a half hour behind here. Although, if you all know us, usually we start 15 minutes later anyway, so maybe technically 15 minutes behind. My apologies on that. And also on the short notice and moving the time. And this is something that I think we're going to do for a little bit. We're going to do it on Thursday. We'll try to start at 9. We'll try to do this for the next few weeks and see how it works out. That way, if we do run late, we start from at least an earlier time anyway. So, but yeah, that's what we're going to try to do here over these next number of weeks here as we approach when we're going to start implementing a lot of the changes that we talked about. So, with all that being said, as always, to start the show, let me do so by letting you all know how you can contribute and interact with us during the show. You can do so by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And as always, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our fan page so that you can interact with us and all that cool, fun stuff that you can do. All right, so okay, I'm just going to try to post this link here. All right, so again, this is our first of two shows this week, and both shows will be aiming for the 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern start time. That's the goal, anyway. We'll see if that sticks or not. Now, Thursday, obviously, we have a very big show. For those that do not know, Thursday we'll be announcing the nominees for the In the Spotlight Film Awards. Obviously, the nomination deadline was last Thursday. We will announce those nominees on Thursday's show. In addition to that, we will also let you all know how you can participate in the live voted awards. Those are the awards will be voted on live during the Film Awards broadcast this February. So we'll let you know how you can participate in that also on Thursday as well. So you want to make sure that you tune in for that. And that's all we're going to do on Thursday. So it's probably not going to be a very long show. But nonetheless, it's a very important show for us. So that will be the deal on Thursday, which means that tonight we have to do all the usual stuff that we usually do, in addition to the stuff that we just feel like doing, stuff, hot button topics that you all want us to talk about, things we feel like we should talk about. So tonight's a very full show. We'll obviously look back at NFL Divisional Playoff Weekend, look ahead to Championship Sunday. We got college basketball highlights. We have an MLB Free Agent update. On the entertainment side, we have this week's edition of the Box Office Beat. I have cut TV highlights. I have cut TV highlights from our schedule tonight. We just don't have the time. There's just too much else going on. So we'll bring those back next week. I feel bad because we just kind of brought them back, but we just don't have the time. So no TV highlights tonight. But Box Office Beat, and then we'll do some Critics' Choice discussion because there was some things I wanted to say about that and how it impacts the Oscar race. Because it does, I think. And then on the wrestling side of things, we got Raw and Smackdown highlights, Braun Strowman. So we have a lot tonight, to get to. So we don't want to waste too much time. It's one of the reasons why I think having an earlier time is a benefit to us. So yeah, so we got a lot to do here on the show. So as always, we'll start off like we always do, when we have NFL on the schedule. We start off with the NFL, and look back at what's transpired. And one of the things I have said, and I've said this over the years, and I've said this again this year as well. One of the things that I've said is that at least with Divisional Playoff Weekend and Wild Card Playoff Weekend, you have 4 games, right? Which gives you more opportunities to have good games. So that if 1 or 2 games lay an egg, hopefully you have at least 1 or 2 games that end up not laying an egg. Wild Card Weekend was tremendous for the NFL. The end of the season was tremendous for the NFL. The beginning of the season wasn't so bad for the NFL. The middle was kind of rough, but evened out, and especially since the last few years, the beginning of the season has been very rough. But again, end of the season very good. Wild Card Weekend very, very good. Maybe aside from one game. This weekend, Divisional Playoff Weekend, you have to classify it as a disappointment. Yeah, the two NFC games weren't too bad. Particularly the Eagles and the Saints, which, look, the Eagles, it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary that the Eagles, look, probably could have won that game if Alshon Jeffrey catches that pass from Foles. I mean, and look, the ball was right there. You can get into, should they have rushed the play before the 2-minute warning? You can get into, there's a, should they, I'm losing my train of thought. I apologize. I'm getting distracted by something here. But you could get into, should they have rushed the play before the 2-minute warning? You could get into the play calling in general, the whole game, because there were some things the Eagles did in the game that I thought were rather suspect. I understood that Doug Peterson wanted to balance things out and wanted to run the ball more, and at times, for the most part, it worked. But if that's going to be your game plan, then why late in the game were you committing totally to passing? Not that Foles can't handle it, but you had a balanced attack the entire game, and all of a sudden now you're going to abandon that, especially at the end of the game when you have to run some time off the clock. It's a real suspect. But the Eagles were still right there, and they got out to a 14-0 lead. And when you look back at that game, the moment of the game was the fake punt. Changed the whole game. Changed the entire game. It was gutsy, and it's something that Sean Payton does a lot. And look, if it didn't work, that was probably the game, even though it was early. Because you figure if it doesn't work and they block and the Eagles stop it, then what were you at? What's it, the 30 to 35, somewhere around there? They're going to probably at least get a field goal. So, yeah, you would have been giving them more points, and that was probably the game, because that was a momentum shift. The fact that they made that and took that kind of risk, it lit a fire under the Saints. And those kind of plays can light a fire under the Saints when your coach shows that much faith in you and does something like that. It was a brilliant move by a great offensive head coach, and it won him the game. That decision by Sean Payton won him the game in the first quarter, even though they were at that point down 14-0. Won him the game. So big decision a big decision, and it was the right one. Right decision that he made. It was the right one. The right choice he made. And you give the Eagles credit for getting out in front 14-0 early, and staying in it. And realistically, let's be honest here. If Jeffrey catches that ball, that pass, the Eagles probably take the lead and have a very good chance at winning. So that's huge. That missed pass is huge, and that's a catchable pass, and he knew it. That's why he laid on the ground for as long as he did. But yeah, he probably and again, maybe the Saints, even if they took the lead, maybe the Saints could still find a way to win the game because we're playing 1 point lead probably. But still, the Eagles had some magic with Nick Foles, and it almost continued. And the Saints didn't play a great game, and the Saints haven't played that great. So that even though they're going to be playing at home next week, that worries you a little bit. It worries you a little bit. I would also say too, a big part of the game was all the injuries for the Eagles on defense. Fletcher Cox, and I mean, there was so many. That defense had been banged up for a lot of the year. And that was a big reason why they struggled. And then it started to get banged up again in the game, all while the Saints had momentum. So that didn't help matters. It really didn't. But they hung in there. And is this the end for Nick Foles in Philadelphia? Many people think it is. We'll see. I wouldn't be so quick to let him go. I mean, they can. I think they have an option. They can keep him for a year. I would try to, because you don't know what Carson wants. When he's healthy, sure. We all know what he did last year when he was healthy. But 2 years in a row, he got hurt and missed the end of the season while Nick Foles took over, led you to a Super Bowl, and led you into the playoffs against all odds. He's had an unbelievable 2 years at points when it mattered the most. And here's another thing. When Carson Wentz was healthy this year, he didn't look great. Not like last year. And they both want to start. But if I were Philly, I would do everything in my power to try to convince Nick to stay one more year. Just to see and make sure that Wentz is the right guy. Because I'm not convinced that he is. He is talent-wise. But can he stay healthy? That's the question. That's the big one. And can you so easily discard a quarterback that led you to a Super Bowl and is going to go down as one of the great, if not the greatest Philadelphia sports stories you've ever seen? And was one drop pass away from potentially winning that game against the Saints, and maybe because you figure if the Eagles won that game, I think they would have went to the Super Bowl. With the momentum they've had and beating the Saints in that building after they beat the Bears last week, they win the game. I think they go to the Super Bowl. So technically, they were one dropped pass. from potentially going to another Super Bowl. Can you be so quick to let Foles go, given what he's done? That's the question for the Eagles. And it's the question of the NFL offseason. Because if this guy's let go, he's good or made available, he's going to have a lot of suitors, as he should, because he's a leader. You saw the way he rallied the Eagles. There's something special about the way that team reacts to him, even in defeat. The way he comforted Jeffrey. He's got a special quality about him. He's got an it factor about him. Now, I know what some people say, well, maybe that won't be the same with another team. Maybe it's just because those guys bought what he was about and it just worked. You're probably right. You could be right. We've seen stuff like that happen. But if I were the Eagles, I would at least put off letting him go at this moment until at least you get one more year to figure out whether Carson Wentz is it. That's what I would do. But you give credit to the Saints; they figured out a way to do it. It wasn't overly impressive, but they did. And why do I start with that game? Because last week, obviously, I went through the games in order because that game was the only really big thing to talk about in Divisional Playoff Weekend. It was a lackluster weekend compared to Wild Card Weekend, compared to the end of the NFL season. It was a lackluster weekend. The first game on Saturday was terrible. Colts just never got going. You heard T.Y. Hilton was hurt. That didn't help. The weather didn't probably cooperate with them either. I knew once the weather was bad, that probably favored the Chiefs, even though Mahomes is a rookie. And look, the Chiefs came out of the gate fast. They wanted to prove themselves and make a statement after all the choking they've done in the past, and they did. They were dominant. How much of that was the Colts not playing well, and how much of that was the Chiefs? Who knows? Still, it was a dominant performance. The Chiefs move on. They look the best they've looked since they cut Kareem Hunt. And the Colts, you give them a lot of credit for the season that they had. And, you got something to build on. It's only Frank Reich's first year. Look what they did. If anything, it's a good building block. Andrew Luck proved that he's healthy. You got a better defense now, a better offensive line. You're good to go. I'll build on it. Second game on Saturday wasn't too bad. Wasn't great. Wasn't always pretty. Dallas probably hung around much longer than they probably should have. They had the early lead and the Rams kind of took off from there. If it wasn't for the Cowboys having as good of a defense as they do, they probably would have gotten blown out of the building. And, the Rams really run it with their running game, and it wasn't all Gurley. Gurley had 115 yards. It was C.J. Anderson with 2 TDs and 123 yards. And that's really what decided the game. Does that worry you if you're a Rams fan? Because Goff wasn't overly impressive. Maybe it does. And we came into it thinking the Rams should be worried anyway, just like the Chiefs. And, the Chiefs were impressive. I didn't think the Rams were that impressive. But the running game really won them the game. And that was the key. I mean, Dallas hung in there. Their defense hung in there. And again, that's what made it competitive. But the key to the game was the running attack of the Rams. And you thought it'd be Gurley, but it was more C.J. Anderson than Gurley. But the Rams find a way to get it done. And again, you're not overly impressed. So the two top teams in the NFC, the Rams and the Saints, don't really overly impress you, but they find a way to get it done. Maybe they had to be a little more creative about it. But they found a way to get it done. And you give Dallas credit for having a year that nobody thought they'd have. Dak Prescott was pretty good in both playoff games. He did everything he could. Offensively, I thought the Cowboys did a lot more than we all thought they would in this game. You know, but Rams were the better team, and they did just enough. And I think you still worry, just like you do about the Saints a little bit, because at the end of the season, both those teams did not play great. So we'll see what you get next week when they face off against each other, because the last time they faced off, the Saints beat the Rams in their building. We'll see if the Rams get their revenge. But I thought it was a pretty decent performance by the Cowboys, and the Rams have a lot to be worried about. So that game ends up not being too bad, but it doesn't end up being overly interesting, because you felt like, even though it was competitive, I guess you never felt like the Cowboys were going to find a way to do it. It was a weird kind of game. And that had that feel that was like, well, they're not being blown out, they're in it, but you just sense that there's nothing they're going to be able to do to win this game. But it was the second best game of the weekend. And that first game on Sunday was just terrible. I guess if you give Bill Belichick an extra week to get ready for opponent, that's what you get. And look, the Chargers looked like they were defeated before they walked in the building. And that's terrible, because the Chargers were one of the best road teams in the NFL this year. And they've done everything this year to kind of get that, we're not the same Chargers mystique off of them, that aura off of them. They had that 12 that great record that really should have won a division for them in any other division. And they draw the Patriots, and look, the narrative all year was New England's not New England anymore, right? Did they look like New England on Sunday? Sure did. Brady looked like Brady. Edelman looked like Edelman. Michelle did great in that game. Came out of nowhere and had a great game, 3 touchdowns, which is a typical New England Patriot thing to do, have somebody come out of nowhere and kind of step up. And they destroyed the Chargers, 41-28. And look, we all know what New England is in their building. They're 8-0 at home this year. Every December and January, try beating them. Not many do. Even when they're not at their best, they find a way. And this is not the best New England team that we've seen. But what they proved on Sunday is it doesn't have to be. Now, again, they were facing a team that many people thought was a good team, but not a great team. And had its moments this year, but even in their most impressive win against the Chiefs, many people thought it was just luck. So maybe you just write it off as they just weren't that good. They were one of those teams that had an inflated record. Maybe you do that. And then you kind of look at this next game for the Patriots on Sunday against the Chiefs as, okay, if the Patriots blow them out, then we have something. And this time around, Belichick only has the traditional 1 week in between games. But to me, that doesn't seem to matter, because he'll still be prepared whether he has an extra week or not. Extra week just gives him even more prep time. But yeah, that game was a terrible game. And again, I mean, the Saturday night game, Cowboy Rams wasn't too bad, but the best game easily was Saints Eagles. And you know, I mean, I guess that kind of falls into what I discussed. That at least you had 2 games that were either decent or good. But still, it's a disappointing weekend because you look at these matchups and you thought you'd get better. You did. So all in all, it ends up being kind of, I guess, half and half. That might be just being nice. But the NFL loses a little bit of momentum and before it goes into championship weekend. And now, like I said, the football season is basically over because you're down to 2 games on Sunday. And when you get down to 2 games, you know, if they're both bad games, then you're kind of screwed. Same thing with the Super Bowl, 1 game, it's a bad game, you're screwed. But yeah. As far as the picks for last week goes, let's see, divisional weekend. I had Colts over Chiefs. I picked a lot of upsets, so I'm not going to be doing so good this week. Colts over Chiefs was a loss. Cowboys over Rams was a loss. I just didn't buy the Rams. Patriots over Chargers was a win for me. Okay, so I went 2-2, so that's not bad. It's kind of been the story of my year, 500. So I had the Patriots and the Saints, and I lost out on the Cowboys and the Colts. I picked upsets on Saturday and favorites on Sunday. So, so I went 2-2. So now we flip the script to championship weekend, championship Sunday. On paper, much like last week, should be 2 good games. Whether they end up being like that or they end up being like last week, where you get 1 game good and 1 game bad, and it's half and half. We'll see. The first game, 3:05 p.m. Eastern on Fox from New Orleans, Mercedes-Benz Superdome. It's the 13-3 Rams, 6-2 on the road. At the 13-3 Saints, 6-2 at home. Obviously, the Saints, their home dominance is well documented, and they beat these same Rams in this building earlier in the season. The Rams did not look overly impressive last week at home. The Saints did not look overly impressive last week at home. Both had to do things, be a little more creative. The Rams went more with the running game. Saints went to trick plays and just took what the defense gave them. This should be a high scoring affair. To me, what it comes down to is really whose defense do you trust to get stops? And we've seen more from the Saints defense, I think, this year than the Rams. Even though the Rams have Wade Phillips as a defensive corner, I've seen more from the Rams, and from the Saints. And we saw these same Saints shut down the Rams early in the season. Does that mean they're going to do it again? No. And the Rams have seen the Saints, and they know what they're going to throw at them. And seeing a team a second time, it makes things a little more difficult. Having said that, I have not liked the way the Rams have been playing for the better part of 2 months. Or almost 2 months. The Saints haven't played particularly well in the last few weeks either. But I've seen more signs of them being that dominant team that we thought they were than I have the Rams. I'm going with the New Orleans Saints because of how they play at home, because of what I just explained. I'm going with the Saints over the Rams, which is interesting because you all know my pick all season was the Rams and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Well, I'm already taking out the Rams, so I'm jumping off that bandwagon. So feel free to destroy me if you want, but I just can't pick the Rams. I just can't. I just don't like the way they're playing. And especially going to New Orleans, where it's just so hard to win. 6:40 p.m. Eastern, CBS. From Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, you have the 11-5 Patriots, 3-5 on the road at the 12-4 Chiefs, 7-1 at home. The AFC Championship game. I have said all year that the key to probably keeping the Patriots out of the Super Bowl was to keep the AFC Championship out of New England. Now, if that game last week was in LA and not New England, would it have made a difference? I don't know. because I don't know if LA was good enough, if the Chargers were good enough. And technically, the Chargers don't have much of a home field anyway, given their situation. So I don't know if that would have made a difference there, but I think it definitely makes a difference here. The Patriots have not been the same team on the road. They've struggled. The Chiefs have been dominant at home. If the weather's snowy and cold, I don't think it really favors either one, because the Patriots are used to it, and I think the Chiefs are somewhat used to it, and you saw them playing it last week. So I don't think that really matters too much, although the Patriots have far more experience in it. Coaching, quarterback, obviously favors the Patriots' on experience, although Patrick Mahomes is the far more talented quarterback at this stage, and the younger quarterback. And the Chiefs probably do have a little bit more in the way of explosive players going downfield in terms of receivers go. But they don't have much of a running game without Kareem Hunt. They've found ways to get it done, but they don't. So that helps the Patriots a little bit. It helps the Patriots a little bit. Now the Patriots have developed a little bit of a running game with the ascension of Michelle last week. So that's something I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have to worry about, because their defense has left a lot to be desired this season. And if Michelle gets off to a good start and gets going, that could cause a lot of problems, open things up for Edelman and Gronkowski downfield. So that's something to look for. I think that might be one of the keys to the game. With that being said, I'm very encouraged by how Kansas City played last week against the Colts. I know the Colts didn't play well, and a lot can be said that they weren't just good enough. But I am very encouraged by how they played. So, and them being at home, and, with all the failures of the past and how they seem to want to exercise those demons, and they did that last week in some ways, I like the Chiefs to beat the Patriots here. I know it's hard to pick against them, but I think even if this ends up being an offensive kind of shootout, I think that they'll figure out a way to get done. I think they should, because that would play into their hands anyway. So, but the Patriots can play that way too. But with the weather, it is going to be probably a little more low scoring than it probably would have been. But I still think the Chiefs will have enough to get it done. So I'm going with the Chiefs over the Patriots. And that's my championship Sunday pick. Saints over Rams, Chiefs over Patriots, which would set up a Saints-Chiefs Super Bowl. A little bit different than my Rams-Chiefs Super Bowl, but still more of an offensive game either way you look at it. We'll see if that's what we get. Those are my picks for championship Sunday. So we'll see what we get. Hopefully, at least we'll get good games. If we can go 2 for 2 on good games and make up a little bit for last week. So, before I move on from football, a lot of you have been asking me about the coaching thing. We talked about the coaching changes last week, and my position hasn't changed. None of these hires to me, other than the Denver hire, are very good. Nothing speaks out to me. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. It's just not. I did like what I saw from Adam Gase in his press conference for the Jets. Maybe he'll end up being better there. He's not a bad coach. He's a great offensive mind. We'll see what happens there. I had hope for him when he went to Miami. And he started off well, but then injuries and stuff. We'll see. But Miami's going with Brian Flores, which is not bad. I guess not a horrible pick, but none of these things are going to move the needle, and none of these things are a guarantee. But then again, we've seen a lot more of these kind of hires in the last few years, and I think, 9 of them have made the playoffs in their first or second year. One of them won the Super Bowl, Doug Peterson and the Eagles. So I guess it's not a bad trend. It's just, I guess we're all just trained and used to having the big hires, the big names getting the jobs. It's a different era, different world. In all sports, you're seeing this. So, but people have been asking me my thoughts. I don't have any other thoughts to add to what I said last week. It's that, again, other than Denver, none of these names scream out to me wow, that's a great hire. I've seen some great hires from a coordinator standpoint. I think the Jets hiring Greg Williams, despite his past, I think that was a good choice. You saw what he did in Cleveland at the end of last year, so I think that's a good choice. But as far as head coaches, nothing screams out to me other than the Denver hire. Because that's a veteran coordinator getting a job, and I think he'll do great things there. I think he suits Denver. And he's got great leadership skills, and I think that's important. especially for a young team. But yeah, nothing else calls out to me like, hey, everything else is kind of we'll see what happens. And look, in a year, if some of these hires turn out to be great, then I'll give credit where credit's due. But I can't really say much about it right now. Because there's too many unknown commodities, to be honest. So we'll see what happens. That's all I can really say. And just to add on to what I said last week in relation to the coaching carousel that we always go through at the end of an NFL season. And I would also say this too: what's the rush on these hires? Didn't they used to see a lot of teams wait till after the Super Bowl? I mean, geez, some of these teams just like hired coaches within a week. It's like maybe it's because they all knew they were going to be, maybe it's because they knew they were going to fire these guys, but still kind of crazy that it happened so fast. All these jobs got filled. It's nuts. But I digress. So, all right, that's it for the NFL. Let's move on. Mike has been on for a little while. Let's bring him in. Mike, you're in the spotlight.
I hate you for talking about the NFL so long.
Well, can you feel the love?
Hate it.
Can you feel the love?
I strongly detest. And by the way, the NFL is a little bit racist. It's true.
No.
The number of black coaches in the NFL is 2.
Wow, you made that rhyme. Wow. Good job, Mike.
Yeah. Well, the NFL is a little bit racist. And we say no shit. If the NFL wasn't that racist, they'd have brought back Colin Kaepernick.
Well, there's a lot more issues than that with Colin Kaepernick, but yeah,
shit.
they're just afraid. That's all. But still,
no shit.
Yeah. But anyway, we have a lot of other stuff to get to. But before we leave sports and head to wrestling and other things, we got some college basketball to talk about. Which my co-host was chatting with me about in text last night. Our Syracuse Orange pulling off the miracle.
Well, I'm not going to say it was a miracle, but I'm going to say it was a signature win. And that seems to be the excuse train is out. Every time Duke loses, the excuse train comes out. And for you and for a lot of other Duke fans, it was choo-choo excuse city, baby.
Wait a minute, whoa.
Well,
back the truck up a little bit. First of all, we're just stating the facts. I don't give an excuse every time Duke loses. Syracuse is beating Duke quite often over these past few years. And I never made an excuse prior to this. And
there were excuses this time around.
Well, I would say this, okay? I would say this. Here's the thing. You lost a starter right before the game because he couldn't play due to flu-like symptoms, and within 5 minutes, one of your other starters, who was the best defender in probably in college basketball, mind you, who already had 4 steals on Syracuse and had Syracuse down 12-0 before they could even look up at the scoreboard. Okay, he gets hurt. His shoulder, and who knows when he's going to be back. Now all of a sudden, you don't have your point guard and your best defender. You lost one of your best shooters before. You had no chance to game plan for this. Now look, to your credit, to your point, okay, that's not why they lost. Because here's the thing: they have 2 guys on the floor.
Okay.
Who are going to be
no. All right. So back the truck up.
Okay.
Back the truck up a little bit more. All right. Mike Krzyzewski is one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct, yes.
He couldn't figure out he didn't have a game plan just in case something like this happened.
Oh, listen.
And by the way, this is the point I think you were about to make. Duke has the 2 guys who are about to go number 1 and number 2 in the NBA draft.
Yes. And that's what I was going to say.
So it shouldn't fucking matter at this point. Syracuse doesn't have any of that. They have Tyus Battle, who went off and finally discovered his shot. They had Elijah Hughes, who finally showed up after coming back early from injury. Syracuse hadn't had Elijah Hughes for about 2 months.
Huh?
Well, no. Who was the point guard that was
Frank Howard.
Frank
They've
Howard,
had
not Elijah
Elijah
Hughes.
Hughes has been there, yeah.
No, that's not who I meant. Frank Howard is injured, and nobody complained and whined. Well, Syracuse did, but we
Yeah,
didn't use him as him being out has been an excuse for us losing.
I did.
It's a reason we haven't been winning. But let's be honest here, we're not going to the fucking extent these Duke fans are after dropping one loss. You guys had the fucking 2 best players in college basketball on the court, and you lost by 3. Fucking man up.
Listen. My point is this: it did change the game, and it did make it easier. Having said that, do I still think? I think what to me the biggest key was this: that injury, okay, more so than the player not being in the game, allowed Syracuse to kind of catch their breath because they were getting railroaded out of the building, and
Well,
it's
they
like,
were getting they were getting railroaded, and none of the shots were falling. But
right,
once they were allowed to catch their breath,
they kind of came back into it. Yeah,
Tyus Battle showed up and decided he wanted to play, and he dropped 32 on Duke. Now, he wasn't even the high scorer in the game. That was still Zion Williamson. So the point stands.
yeah.
Duke had the 2 best players
Yes.
on
Which is
the court.
Which is why you can't say that you can't count this win for Syracuse because they had the 2 top lottery picks on the floor, both of whom performed well, both of whom are matchup nightmares. And Duke still had opportunities to win that game, and they only lost it by, let's just say 3, right? 3 or 4, whatever
They
it was.
lost by
So
3 or 4 in overtime. So it's
and
like,
here
I'm sorry.
and here's the other thing too. The thing that I think got missed in the entire game, okay, was now Syracuse isn't doing very well by having Dolajai start, right? And having him play more minutes because he's a better passer and he's a better offensive player. He facilitates the offense a little bit better than Chuku. Chuku hasn't been offering anything all season long. Well, in this game, they sent Dolajai to the bench mostly because of the foul issues, but you send him to the bench and all of a sudden Pascal Chuku all of a sudden figures out how to be a quality center.
He had 18 rebounds.
And he had some big points down the stretch too.
He has 18 rebounds. He scored big points, and he created a lot of problems for Zion Williamson on the offensive rebound. So Zion couldn't get as many rebounds as he usually does because Pascal Chukwu finally figured out how to be 7-2.
Yeah.
No, and that's fine. But
the best part was he didn't put the ball on the floor late in the game either, which is nice.
Well, yeah, if you don't put if a 7-2 guy puts the ball on the floor, he's the same size as everybody else.
Yeah, right.
That's just the long and the short.
Right. Good point. And look, the fact of the matter is too, if Syracuse has if Syracuse gets contributions from their centers, and Frank Howard plays like Frank Howard, they're going to win a lot of games. That's just it. You see, I mean, Tyus is going to most games. Tyus is going to figure out a way to score. And that's the kind of game that he likes, an ACC game where the refs don't call nothing and they go up and down. It's an up and down game. And I'm going to say something too. Boeheim finally took the leash off those guys.
Mm-hmm.
He finally said, you know what, enough with the deliberate offense. Let's just go to the basket on every play, basket, kick out, go to the basket, attack the rim. It showed in that game. Those guys like to play up and down basketball. They don't want to be in a half court, slow plodding set. They don't want to be in that kind of offense.
Well, Shea Brissett really didn't. He contributed, but he wasn't really that much of a factor. So, I mean, every point counted, so his 16 didn't matter.
They got to get him going, but yeah, you're right. They didn't need him, but
And I don't mean to change the subject because yes, then that's just the situation for most of college basketball nowadays.
Yeah,
most of the current players don't feel comfortable being in this. And a play calling kind of set. Well, we're slow and we're running these plays.
The Virginia set.
It's the Virginia. Well, the Virginia set is we're going to be slow and running plays, but every shot's going to be from beyond the arc. Although they're not doing it this year for once.
Yeah, it's funny how losing to a 16 seed will do that too.
Yeah, Virginia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. So,
And let's be honest, Duke probably should have lost on Saturday.
yep.
If Florida State doesn't blow a defensive assignment the way they did.
Yeah, I was watching that game live, and hey, Florida State had four Duke guys, really,
Mm,
really well guarded, including the guy throwing the ball in. They
yeah,
had four guys very well guarded, including three guys on the center.
yeah.
Unfortunately, you had one guy just kind of standing behind the three saying, "Hi, I'm wide open." Herp derp.
Somebody,
And if you're
somebody,
gonna,
yeah,
if you're gonna give that guy all the time in the world, of course he's gonna knock down a wide open three.
yeah. Somebody asked me on Saturday after that game, do you think Florida State's overrated? Because I think of there's two ACC teams that people haven't really gotten enough of a look of, and that's Virginia Tech and Florida State. Although Virginia Tech, you kind of got a preview of it last year, and you know how good Buzz is. So, but that's here and there. But and the question was posed to me: which one do you think is if of the two, do you think which one's more overrated? And I said Florida State. Because if you look at the scorers that Virginia Tech has, Virginia Tech's going to win a lot of games. They're going to be a tough team to play. Florida State, they're not the kind of team that Leonard Hamilton really likes to coach. They're not as good defensively and offensively they're good, but they're not very dimensional. If they shoot the ball well, they're going. It's kind of like Syracuse. They shoot the ball well, they're going to win. If they don't, they're not. So that's something I think they're going to be a very up and down team. While Virginia Tech, I think, is going to be more consistent. Where they're going to get what they get game in and game out, and you're going to know what you're going to get from them. So that's kind of the difference. But and Virginia Tech lost tonight to Virginia.
Surprise.
At Virginia, mind you. And look, here we go with Virginia again. They're
Surprise.
16-0, and they're 4-0 in the ACC, and they're playing Duke on Saturday.
Oh, well. Hey, I wonder if Duke loses, if they're going to have an excuse for that game, too.
I think Duke is going to lose on Saturday. So
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Do you think if Duke loses that the Cameron Crazies are going to start making excuses everywhere, too?
Probably.
Oh, absolutely. No. There's no probably about it. The answer is definitely yes.
As long as Trey Jones is out, they will. So.
Oh, well.
I'm kind of.
We can't win because Trey Jones is on the bench. But it doesn't matter that we have the two best players in college basketball.
I'm going to say this. I'm kind of hoping Duke does win on Saturday just because I don't want Virginia to do what they do every year, which is run through the entire ACC and everybody's hot pick to win it all, and they just,
Well, as long as Virginia never wins, then I'm fine with that too.
They're not going to. It's deceiving. We talked about this over the years. I think that the best comparison I can make with Virginia is they're a poor man's Pittsburgh. Remember, every year in the old Big East, we'd look at Pittsburgh and they dominate the hell out of the Big East.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get to the tournament and then there it goes.
Yep.
It's the same thing. That style does not work in the NCAA tournament. It just doesn't. It doesn't carry over. Eventually, you're going to run into a team that can score on anybody, and then you're done.
Yep.
That's just a long and short. And by the way, speaking of Pittsburgh is coming on. Jeff Capel has really turned them around. So that's the team to kind of keep an eye on. They might be able to sneak in on some teams. I think they beat. I'm looking at the scoreboard from last night. They beat somebody. I forgot what they beat last night. I think they beat Florida State. So there you go. That's my. Yeah, they did. They beat Florida State 75-62. There you go. And by the way, they got the home court back at Pitt, but them winning games, they're 12-5. And you know as well as I do, when Pitt's good and you go into their building, oh boy. They beat so far. They beat Louisville and Florida State in conference play. So they're going to be a tough team.
Always a tough team.
Yeah, but the last couple of years they've been down to the point where it's like it was easier to kind of deal with them. But
it was easier because they couldn't figure out how to put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, well, they figured it out now. So,
once they figured it out now, then it's going to be much harder. And by the way, speaking of teams that got their ass handed to them today, Did you know that Arkansas was actually kind of decent? Well, not anymore. They were 10-5, but then they got upset by Tennessee.
Wasn't really buying them, but okay. But Tennessee's really good. Tennessee's really good.
Hey, but the other game that I was kind of watching on and off tonight because I was out, and it just happened to be on. Hey, did you know Georgia almost had Kentucky in the first half? They were only down by 1.
They're really Kentucky's actually surprised me because I think it's one of his better teams. Just that something's not clicking. It's one of those times, Remember a couple years ago. I forgot who was on that team though. It was a Syracuse team. I know that. That was kind of like we looked at the talent, like, well, why aren't they playing better?
Mm-hmm.
And Kentucky reminds me. I mean, they're still going to make the tournament, but they remind me of that. It's like they should be in the top 5, but they're just not. It cracks me up that the times that I didn't think Kentucky was that good, they had better seasons. And the year that I think they're actually really good, they can't get it together. It's weird, but a lot of these teams that kind of came into the top 25 this week. Indiana got wrecked by Nebraska last night. Wisconsin, I think, is terrible. They got beat by Maryland last night. Texas, who I think is underachieved. I think Texas should be better than they are. They almost beat Kansas last night, but they lost, which that's kind of the story. The whole Big 12 always almost doesn't count, right? No matter what kind of year Kansas has, they just seem to always try to get it done. Seem to get it done. Michigan State's kind of turned it around a little bit though. They're on a little bit of a run. Michigan's been great. Just trying to look through if there's anything that I haven't noticed. Tennessee beat Florida, and so Tennessee's been great. Clemson's already fallen off, which is no surprise. Texas Tech is. We should not have to worry about Texas Tech having that record they had last year, where they had the great overall record, but had the crappy conference record. So they're on their game. Auburn is kind of flying under the radar, but I just haven't been overly impressed with them. Louisville has been better this year. Knocked off Carolina over the weekend. They got Chris Mack now. Of course, you know him. So they're going to be on the way to getting decent. There's a good game in the Big East going on tonight. Marquette and Georgetown, they're tied at 60. And Georgetown can really use that win. They're not doing too bad. They're 12-5, but they could really use that win. I'm trying to see what else. Notre Dame and North Carolina are locked up in a 1-point game. Notre Dame leading that game. North Carolina's kind of struggling right now. See, I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Buffalo's going to win the rest of their games. I'm not even going to look at that game.
We'll keep it going for a second. I'm going to run to the bathroom again.
Wake Forest beat NC State. That's kind of an upset, considering where they've been this year. Mississippi State beat Florida. Florida, I don't think is going to make it. They're really struggling. Kind of helping the bubble be a little bit soft this year. I think we covered all the big ones from the past week. I think we covered all the big ones from the last week, as far as like big wins go and stuff. I mean, we're firmly in conference play now, so every game's going to be big, and every game, there's some big ones over the next week. You got a Kansas State Oklahoma game tomorrow, which will be big, more so for Kansas State because they can use a marquee win. Let's see, Houston's kind of flown under the radar. They get a game at SMU tomorrow night. Let's see. Gonzaga and Loyola Marymount. That's a good game for Loyola Marymount. They want to prove themselves to be legit. Maryland, Ohio State. Ohio State's been struggling of late. That's a good chance for them to get back on the other right side of things. Xavier and Villanova on Friday night. Really good game. Xavier could use that win because they've been kind of struggling, as is Villanova early in the season, but they've kind of turned it on of late. Michigan and Wisconsin on Saturday. I'm not that excited. Michigan will take care of that one. North Carolina, Miami's not that great of a game. Kansas, West Virginia is not a great game this year. West Virginia is in bad shape this year. NC State, Notre Dame might be interesting. Kentucky, Auburn will be a good one. Both teams kind of need that game. Virginia, Duke, I mentioned already. I think Duke might lose that one, even though they're at home. Virginia does not fear Cameron Indoor. So, Oklahoma, Texas. That's a big game for Texas. They need that game in the worst way. Let's see if there's anything else on Saturday. No. Sunday doesn't really offer much. And then next week, Big Monday. Big Monday got treated to a great. That's what they did by setting up Syracuse Duke last night. They got a great game to start things off, which hey, that's what you want. Next week, you got Maryland, Michigan State, which is a good game. Virginia Tech, North Carolina, that's a good game. And Iowa State, Kansas. So some good games on next Monday night on Martin Luther King Day, and then next Tuesday, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Villanova, Butler, Duke, Pittsburgh, which now becomes an interesting game because Pittsburgh's really kind of come on. So yeah, some interesting games over the next week, I think. Yeah, some good games. And some good games over this last week. Things kind of really picked up this week in college basketball. And of course, the Syracuse Duke game last night lived up to the hype and continued that rivalry, which has been probably the ACC's best rivalry since the ACC expanded. So it's always lived up to the hype. The games have been great. So another chapter added last night. A great start to Big Monday. And really, once you get into Big Mondays and everything, and once college football's over, that's when college basketball usually takes off. So it really did over the last week. Some good games, some big upsets, and we're off and running. And in a couple of weeks, we'll start our Bubble Watch segment, and we'll be talking tourney. It's kind of weird how quickly it goes. Once college football is over, you're already in the thick of, you're maybe about a week or two into conference play. And then, you have 5, 6, 7 weeks, and then you're already talking tournament and into conference tournament play, and then away you go. So it's like blink and you miss it. It's just weird how quickly it goes, but it's what happens. Let's see here. All right, so I don't know if Mike is back or not, but if he isn't, I think we just move on because I think we covered everything we had to cover in college basketball. I just want to go through some of the highlights and go through some of the big games over the last week and kind of look ahead. So with that, we just move on. We have other sports stuff to talk about, so let's do that. I said I'd give you all an MLB Free Agent update, so let's do that right now because here's the thing. Over the last week, there really hasn't been much. Some small signings led by DJ. I'm probably going to butcher his name. DJ Remiel, I think that's his name, from the Rockies. The Yankees signed him to a 2-year, $24 million contract. He kind of will be that super utility man. I like to call him the Ben Zobrist. He had great couple All-Star appearances while he was in Colorado. Had 7 special years. They're kind of an underrated player. He's a slap hitter, contact hitter, which is the kind of player the Yankees need more of. So that's probably why they got him. And he's extra insurance in their infield, which, they signed Tulowitzki, but he's kind of a health risk. And, who knows if they try to move Andahar, what they try to do. And they can even play him at first base, but he's a Gold Glover and he's a 2-time All-Star, and he can play. I mean, he had his split. A lot of people were negative about him because of his road splits, but if you look at road splits in baseball now, they're all bad. So he's in another offensive ballpark, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But yeah, I think it's a good signing. Now, everybody of course said, well, when they did this officially takes him out of Manny Machado, even though in many ways I think going after Tulowitzki probably did that. Look, the way things are going with the free agent market, obviously Harper, Machado are still out there, and because they're still out there, a lot of other free agents are out there, although some are starting to get picked up. Apparently Harper and his agent Scott Boras met with the Phillies in Vegas. They had a big presentation. Apparently it went well, and they were prepared to send him an offer. Now, again, what's weird about this whole situation with both Harper and Machado, and again, we talked about how I think both agents are being competitive and they both are kind of waiting for the other to sign so they can get the bigger deal and blah, 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 blah. But what's interesting about this is you've had teams wait so long to offer things. Like, okay, you're meeting. Let's look at this weekend for a second.
Do we have to?
Well, thank you, Mike. The
You're welcome.
Phillies, the Phillies make a great presentation to Harper, and they still haven't. And 4 or 5 days later, we still haven't made an offer to him. And you've been talking with this guy back and forth for a couple months. You know what he is. You see him in your division for how many years? I mean, what's the holdup here? If it really went that well, why wasn't an offer extended then and there? And the same thing goes with Manny Machado. He went through all those visits back in December, but no offers. And the White Sox apparently make an offer, but then there's all this confusion over what the offer was. Some said it was 10 years, some said it was 8 years, it was this kind, it was over 300 million. And then in reality, we find out it was the same offer that they've had for a few weeks, 7 years and what, 240, 250, 210? What, I don't even know what it was anymore. I don't know if it's the media. Again, I said this last week. I feel like maybe the agents are leaking false things to the media, and that's why you're getting so many conflicting reports to kind of get, either more teams involved, like the Yankees, because they're like, oh, if we put this out, the Yankees might say the price is down, they might get involved, and might drive the price up with some other teams. I don't know if that's the game that they're playing, or if the media is just getting, if the reporters are just getting the wrong information, because the baseball reporters have been terrible this offseason with these reports. They don't seem to know anything that's going on. I mean, bloggers are putting them to shame, which is kind of sad.
Let's just stop it. Baseball reporters have been bad recently.
It's just, and here's the other thing. Like I said, what is the deal here? I understand. What is the deal here? Like, why are teams waiting so long? You talk about all these different. Look back at the winter meetings. When guys, we had a few signings back then, like either right before or right after it. Offers were made right then and there. And then you go around and you have a couple of days to kind of mull over it, and you made the decision. That's how it's always worked. Why? It reminds. I mean, even the NBA, when you have these guys do what Machado and Harper are kind of doing, which is we're going to go visit him, we're going to do this big pomp and circumstance. You see that in the NBA, like what LeBron James, he holds a summit, and all these teams come to see him. But do you see any of this posturing? No. They make their offers when they see LeBron. And then after a couple of days, he gives them an answer. Or any of those NBA free agents. You get the offer when you meet them face to face, and in a couple of days you get the answer. And then, if you have to, kind of like go back and forth and negotiate and that, you do that. Whatever's going on, this is so surreal. And it's January 15th, and the two prize free agents of the market are not signed. I can see everybody else because you saw what happened last year. And there were also no prizes on the free agent market last year. Except for J.D. Martinez. I think he was probably the only one. And he signed late too. But still, I could see that. These guys are supposedly generational players. They're both in their mid-20s, even a 10-year contract. You don't get them on the really bad part of their careers. They're supposed to be a slam dunk, and they're not getting it, which is, again, why I said last week this is probably going to lead to a strike in 2020. It's like the NFL is going to strike, but we're not going to talk about that tonight. I don't know what that tells me is a couple things. One, it tells me that the teams that have the best offers, or the teams that they think are the ones that are most in the race to get them, okay? The players don't want to go to these teams. Okay, so like right now the Phillies seem like the favorite for Harper, and the White Sox are the favorite for Machado. They don't want to go to these teams. The Phillies are competitive right now, but Harper don't want to go there because we did. He would say, okay, making me an offer. Oh, okay, I'll take that. Same thing with Machado. So that's what tells you that they're waiting on somebody else to get involved. That is like the attention. Maybe that's part of it too, but I'm sure that might be a bit of a part of it. But, I mean, if they wanted these teams, they'd be there. They would just take what the offers are. So that's part of it. The other part of it too is, what that tells you is, even for the teams that are making offers, they're not sold on these guys. They're not giving them anywhere close to what they wanted. which goes back to what I was saying. Neither one of these guys is the generational talent that people make them out to be. They both have had injury issues at times. They both have had clubhouse issues at times. They both have attitude issues at times. They're both streaky, very streaky players. And one of them couldn't even bother to hustle during the World Series and has gone on record saying that he don't feel like he has to. So, again, this is not Mike Trout. When Mike Trout hits the free agent market, I think you'll see a far different, even in this current climate, different treatment. This is about the players. Again, would there be still a lot of free agents out there to be signed? Oh yeah, but these two guys, if these guys were more like Mike Trout, they would have been signed. They would have gotten closer to the money that they would have wanted. Maybe they wouldn't have gotten exactly what they wanted, but they would have been closer.
When you say like Mike Trout, how do you mean that?
Meaning that they're good teammates. They hustle. They play the game hard. They're not injury prone. They're they're multi-layered. They're multi-tiered talents. Mike Trout can steal bases. He hits for average. He hits for power. He's a great fielder.
Yeah, that's right.
So
no. Also, though, Mike Trout's just not interesting.
He's not, but he's the safer choice.
Yes. Well,
And if
not interesting.
Here's the thing you got to think about. A lot of these teams that are in on Harper and Machado, and let's just throw the Yankees in. They're claiming they're not in, can put them down, right? A lot of these teams are younger. They have younger superstars. Do you really want to bring somebody in that's going to set a bad example and poison and be toxic to them too? You're creating. This is, people can say what they want about Alex Rodriguez, obviously the steroids and all those stuff. But Alex Rodriguez in his prime was a great teammate. When he got signed to take teams, that people were like, "Oh, he's going to be a problem in the clubhouse. Oh, he's going to be this. Oh, he's going to be that." Nobody had an issue with that. He hustled. He respected the game. He worked hard. Maybe put too much pressure on himself, which led to all the nonsense. But you know what I mean? You didn't have questions at that point about who he was character-wise or what he was going to bring to your team. Now, obviously, there was questions later, but that's a whole other story. Harper and Machado, you know there's issues. You know that they're streaky players. They're not consistent players. And the Yankees already have one of those guys on their team in Stanton. Stanton goes through periods where he hits 20 home runs in like 6 weeks, and then you don't hear from him again for another month. You don't need more players like that, and that's kind of what they are. But it isn't just about the Yankees. Other teams have shied away from. Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers have tons of money to spend. They won't go after him. It's not about being cheap.
Well, nobody's accusing him of being cheap.
Well, teams are accusing the Yankees, fans are accusing the Yankees and the Dodgers of being cheap because they don't go after them.
Ironically, people are accusing the Yankees.
Yeah.
The New York Yankees.
Well, they have
cheap.
They have the third highest payroll in baseball. That's blasphemy now.
It just means other teams have to pay that luxury tax. But that's the thing about the New York Yankees. They don't have to go out and get Machado or Harper. They got Giancarlo Stanton last year, and Stanton's arguably a better hitter. Yes, he's streaky, and Stanton does need to learn how to handle a big city like New York, the biggest city like New York. However,
no, he's got a year now, so
he's got a year. He's dealt with the fans. He's dealt with the public. He's dealt with the media. He's dealt with the city. He knows what to expect going forward.
That's right.
He's going to be paid handsomely, so he's in a good position. And once Giancarlo Stanton goes into once he's playing better and is more comfortable in his arena, then he only improves. And
the guy yeah.
And besides, Giancarlo Stanton is, according to most sources, a really good teammate.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
And Giancarlo Stanton's not going to fuck around on the bases like Manny Machado.
The other thing too is that the guy had a so-called bad year, and he was it was 30 and 100.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that's his bad year, I like to. I mean, what's his? I mean, we all saw what his great year was: 60 something home runs and 140 something RBIs. So, um, but yeah.
So
So
the
it,
Yankees don't need Harper or Machado.
they also got a bargain on Stanton too,
Yeah.
because Marlins is still paying the contract. They're paying a lot less for Stanton per year than they would have been paying for Machado or Harper.
So there's just no need to go get them. So for the Yankees, anyways. Do you know
If
who
it
can
falls,
use them? The Mets.
well, they don't have the money. Um,
Never do.
yeah. But you know what gets me too is look, if both these guys take a discount or it falls into their lap, they'll do it. That's the thing. The way that this is going, it almost has the earmarks of one of those Brian Cashman specials, like Teixeira did a few years back, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was like, the market wasn't quite what it was, and it fell into a range they were comfortable with, and they're like, oh, okay, we'll just go take them.
Well, if they can do it,
Yeah.
there's
Well,
no point to it.
you've seen them do it before. There is no point to it, but they can, hey, it is what it is. They figure it out. They can figure it out. But yeah, we're in a holding pattern here, and who knew that the two top free agents would still be sitting here on January 15th with spring training less than a month away?
God help us all.
Yeah. Well, no, not for me, but um, anyway, I just want to give an update. So no, obviously when there's any big signings or anything or big trades, we'll talk about it. But so far, been quiet on a few little things. So, um, somebody asked me what my opinion was on the whole Kyler Murray thing. What the NFL draft and that. Just what can look? The kid's got a decision here. He either goes to the NFL draft and makes a crap ton of money because even with his height. Look at Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson maybe an inch or so taller than him in the career he's had. So just because he's short doesn't mean he can't have a good career quarterback. He either goes to the NFL draft and makes a ton of money in the NFL, or he goes to the A's in Major League Baseball and makes a lot of money there. Either way, this guy's making up. He wants to look. He's going to pick the thing that he loves to do. I've seen people say he's dumb to go into the NFL draft. Oh, he's going to be he's going to get hit around. He's going to have a short career. I mean, why would you want to go to the NFL when you go to baseball? It's not a contact sport. Look, if he likes the game, he likes the game. He's good at both. Okay? It's easier to go from football to baseball. It's harder to go from baseball to football. So if he wants to go and try the NFL and then try his luck at baseball down the line, he can do that. I mean, I don't know what else. I mean, some of the debates over this is kind of stupid. Quite frankly.
To be honest with you, the debate over this is stupid. Either the guy's going to, as you said, the guy's going to go to the NFL and make a shit ton of money for a little bit,
Yeah.
or he's going to go to the Oakland A's and make a shit ton of money. Either way,
he's making money.
A sports star. So it's
Speaking
what he wants to do in the end.
Speaking of stupid, I've been getting a kick out of the fact that people have been going crazy on Sean McDonough and Jay Billis last night for their commentary, saying that they're biased.
Well, I mean, they're honest.
It's like they put a Duke guy and an SU guy on an SU Duke game. And I like how Billis is like, we have every big Monday regardless of the teams.
It just works that way.
But it just happened to be the first game was SU. I mean, you just notice this. They've had like almost every SU Duke game since the rivalry started.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the responses are kind of funny. I've just been following it all day, so I just had to bring it up. It's kind of funny, but I digress. Anyway, we've covered a lot of sports stuff. We need to get out of it, so let's get out of it.
Please.
Really quick, we're going to jump to some entertainment.
Why?
Well, because I have to, Mike.
Why are you not doing a show on Thursday?
No, I have Film Award nominations on Thursday.
Oh, God help us all.
Oh, God help us all. Yes. That's okay, because I don't have a lot. The box office beat has been very short. You just don't realize it. You're going to see that in like now. So let's do the box office beat because obviously we had a little bit of an upset. That's pretty much the only topic we're discussing on Aquaman crossing $1 billion worldwide. I hate the fact that that's the first DC movie other than the Nolan movies to hit the $1 billion mark. Actually, I don't, because there were worse movies that could be, but I wish it was Wonder Woman, because at least that movie was good. Um,
Wonder
um,
Woman didn't suck. Aquaman, upon further reflection,
sucked.
yeah.
Yeah, overrated. But anyway, um, yeah, Aquaman finally fell from number one domestically at the box office, but it's still doing very well worldwide, and it crossed the $1 billion mark worldwide. So good for DC. They're on a little bit of a roll right now. I mean, if you take out Justice League, you got Wonder Woman, you got Aquaman. They, both did well. But Aquaman lost its hold on number one because the upside, the Jason, not Jason, I'm sorry, wow. Good Lord. Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart film, which shows this more serious side of Kevin Hart, which is interesting. He's finally changing things up a little bit. Outperformed expectations and took number one this week at the box office with a $20.3 million gross, which kind of falls in line with where I thought it could go. It only has a $37.5 million budget, so it's looking okay there. The interesting thing about this is, given everything that's happened with Kevin Hart over the last 2 months, you almost thought it was going to hurt his star power. It didn't look like it did. Because this kind of movie wouldn't usually make this kind of money. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's just more of a serious, more dramedy type movie. And it did pretty well. So, one of the biggest surprises so far this year, it probably is the biggest surprise so far this year. So, I mean, good for them. But it does show you that maybe the people thinking that Kevin Hart's star was going to lose some luster, maybe that was a little bit of a jump. Aquaman, as I said, lost number one. It dropped to number two with 17.3, which is still not bad for its fourth week. Only dropped 44%. A Dog's Way Home kind of fell right where I thought it would, maybe around, I think I said about 10, 12 million, 11.2 million, which isn't too bad for a family film. Didn't do as well as its predecessor, but still did okay. It's only an $18 million budget, so it should probably at least make some kind of profit. After starting off pretty slow, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has held off really, really well. In its follow-up weeks, it moved up from fifth to fourth, pulling in $9 million, only dropping 31% in its fifth week. It's made $303.1 million worldwide, so very good total, given its $90 million budget. So that film, a very good success for Sony. And Sony's had a lot of good luck lately, so including Escape Room, which was probably was the first big surprise of this year. Maybe not the greatest surprise. I think the upside is probably a little bit of a bigger one, but still a good one nonetheless. Escape Room dropped from second to fifth, which horror films tend to do, with 8.9 million, which is not still too bad. Again, $9 million budget. It's already made over 30 million. At least that's just domestically. So, yeah, that film's done very well for itself. And then rounding off the films over 5 million, you had Mary Poppins Returns dropped from third to sixth, 7.6 million. Bumblebee dropping from fourth to seventh with 7.2 million. As those two holiday movies start to fade a little bit here, as the holidays are getting further and further in our rearview mirror. On the basis of sex, moved up from 16th to 8th as it expanded into 1,800 more theaters. 6 million, a little over 6 million. Last week, The Mule dropped from 6th to 9th with 5.6 million. Everything else finished under 5 million, including Leprechauns, the Keanu Reeves film, in its first weekend only put in $2.3 million, which is terrible. But for a movie that only had, I think, maybe 2 weeks worth of promotion, we shouldn't be that surprised. Also, on the negative side of things, Holmes and Watson continues to struggle in its third week. It's at 563,000. That film really just did not do well. It's only up to 37.1 million worldwide, and a $42 million budget. So very disappointing there. And another storyline to watch here as we go forward over the next couple months, obviously with the Oscar race on, you have the awards competitor movies that are out. We thought The Mule would be one, but it hasn't turned out to be. But you have Vice, which is doing okay, kind of holding up well. I made 3.2 million this week. Bohemian Rhapsody, 3.2 million. Beale Street Could Talk, 2.4 million. Green Book, 2.1 million. A Star Is Born is in its 15th week, still making pretty good amounts of money with 1.1 million. The Favorite 1.1 million. So a lot of those movies holding up pretty well and still doing decent business, even if they've been out for a few weeks or have been kind of hanging around, had expanded releases and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the biggest success story continues to be Aquaman, but you had a big surprise in the upside. So all in all, ends up being a decent box office, which is what I thought it would be. Not great, but decent. And now you flip the script to a holiday weekend, Martin Luther King weekend, which is usually the highest grossing box office weekend of January because of obviously having the Monday off. Now that might not be the case this year because there's a potential winter storm on the East Coast. So that could impact some things. So you always look for that in the winter season. That weather can impact how many people can go to the movies. So you look out for that. But you do have a big movie being released this weekend, probably the biggest movie of the month. And it's the only major release of this weekend. That film is Glass. It's a thriller from Universal, opening in 3,500 theaters. Directed and written by M. Night Shyamalan and starring Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson, and James McAvoy, and Sarah Paulson. The last film in the Unbreakable franchise. You saw how good Split did and how good Unbreakable does, so you figure this will at least do decently. You could see it doing like a $30-35 million weekend. If you count Monday, it might get over 40. I'm not willing to go much further than that because I just don't know. It's not getting the best reviews, and I just don't know how much momentum this film has, how much of a fan base this film will have, how many people really were clamoring for this. I think there was some anticipation to finish this off, but how much, who knows? That's obviously critical here. It's the only major new release, so that helps it. But you have some films that have been holding up reasonably well, even from the holidays, that are going to compete with this film and kind of hurt it. So yeah, so that kind of something to factor into things. So the way I see this weekend going is I think Glass will be number one. I'm going to go about 35 million. Could go a little bit more if you include Monday. I'm not doing 3-day and 4-day numbers, so I'm just going by the 3 days. But and with potential weather issues too, I think that kind of holds it back too. So I'll go 35. And if you count Monday, I might be able to get to 40. And Monday could end up being a bigger box office day if there's stormy weather on Saturday and Sunday. We might see more people go out on Monday to the movies. So that's something to keep an eye out for too. But yeah, 35 million for Glass. And I'll say that'll be number one. Number two, I'm gonna go with. I think Aquaman's going to hold up better in the upside. I think upside's going to be very front loaded, especially since it might appeal more to older audiences and of course Kevin Hart's fan base. So I'm going to say Aquaman in second with around, based on how it's been holding, 13.5, 14 million. Upside third with around 11. Let's see. I'm going to say Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse around 7.5, 8. Probably won't drop off too much. Dog's Way Home will probably drop to around 6 million. And I think everything else, I think Mary Poppins Returns and Bumblebee will both be around 5.5 million, probably be interchangeable there. Escaping will probably drop below 5 million because it's a horror movie, it's going to keep dropping. I think everything else will be under 5 million this weekend. So you won't have as many movies over 5 million. But I still think, with Glass and the movies that do hold up pretty well, like Aquaman and such, I think it'll end up being an okay weekend. It'll probably be a little worse than last week, even though it's a holiday weekend. But, with the weather and that, you just can't go any higher. And some of these movies have been out for so long. Only one major new release probably doesn't figure to be the best or the biggest Martin Luther King Jr. movie weekend. So yeah, it'll be an okay weekend, but probably not as good as last weekend, but not terrible either. So next weekend though, you do have multiple new releases, which is shocking because you figured there'd be more releases for the holiday weekend, but maybe they just figured it'd be better to wait and make sure all the holiday movies are burned up, which makes sense when you have a fantasy film coming out next weekend. Fox does. The Kid Who Would Be King will be released next weekend, as well as Serenity. You got 2 new releases next weekend before you turn the page to February, and then things start to pick up with some big releases. And then building to the spring movie season, which obviously is always a lot bigger, and starts to build up some big budget movies and summer movies, and towards the end as well. So So yeah, that's the story at the box office this weekend. So last week decent. This week will be probably at least okay, and then you go from there. So not great, but not the worst period at the box office that you're going to see. So that's it. That is your box office beat. Unless Mike, you have anything to add?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So that's the box office. Now, really quickly, I have some thoughts because I have to say this because I got to get this off my chest. First off, let me just get the impact of what I saw Sunday night on the Oscar race out of the way. Because after we talked about the Golden Globes last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, I said that it's interesting because nobody suspected Bohemian Rhapsody being the race. I still don't think they will be, despite their win at the Golden Globes. But you can't easily write them off either because they won the biggest award of the night. But you also saw Green Book win, which led me to believe that maybe Green Book, especially since it didn't do great at the box office, could be the choice, right? Let's see how it does, right, going forward. Well, Green Book did okay at the Critics' Choice, but the movie that did incredibly well at the Critics' Choice was Roma. And the reason why nobody has been giving Roma much of a chance, because it's a foreign language film. And the Oscars don't usually give much push to a Best Picture nominee. It's a foreign language film. It does have Alfonso Cuarón, who is a favorite of the Academy. He's been, he's won director before. He's been winning a lot of these director awards so far in this award season. Now, here's the other part of this. Roma is a Netflix vehicle. So, does that hurt it? Because now the Academy has a lot of new members, and maybe they don't care so much about that. But if enough of the old school Academy is involved here, they might frown upon that. So you don't know. That's something to keep an eye out for. But you're starting to wonder if this is going to be the movie. It's because in a year, again, the last couple of years have been very divisive. That like I've been mentioning, is how it doesn't seem like all these factions can get behind one or two movies like we always see, right? Which is the conventional award season. It's been very divisive, and this year more so than ever. But now you're starting to wonder if this is going to be the movie because everything else they can't seem to decide on. Now, I think you throw more weight towards A Star Is Born because Lady Gaga did tie Glenn Close, and it did seem like it got recognized a little bit more better there, but at the Critics' Choice there. But I don't know. Again, that's the popular choice, and we saw a couple years ago, La La Land was the popular choice, was winning everything, and they went with Moonlight. So I don't know. I would say right now you have to give a lot of weight to Roma, despite the fact it's a foreign language film, despite the fact it's a Netflix vehicle. I think you have to think about that. I would say right now, if I were placing, again, we still got the SAGs, which I think are going to be very big and helping. Again, I know that the Oscars hasn't always fallen in line with other award shows like in the past couple of years, like they used to. But I still think that's important to tracking who has the momentum, right? The SAGs and the other Guild Awards will be very important here. Very important here. For a while, people thought the favorite might be the movie. I think right now, you have to weigh them like this. Green Book, number 1. Roma, number 2. Vice, number 3. The Favorite, number 4. And The Star Is Born. That's how I think I would put them right now as of where we're at right now. Another interesting wrinkle from the Critics' Choice Awards was Christian Bale winning actor over Rami Malek. Bale won 2 awards on Sunday night. Now, if we go by performances, and I look, Bale was, for my intents and purposes, Bale was great as Vice, right? But Rami Malek had that like career-defining performance, right? However, in some cases, as we all know, if they don't like the movie, sometimes if the movie has a director that ruffled a lot of feathers, okay, which clearly Bryan Singer did, and that's putting it mildly. Sometimes that hurts. And it could be hurting Rami Malek. It didn't hurt at the Golden Globes. It hasn't hurt him on a lot of other award circuits, but it could hurt him at the Oscars. He's going to be nominated. We know that. But maybe we're giving too much credence to Rami Malek being the favorite. Maybe Christian Bale's the favorite now. So it's going to be one of the two. And obviously on the woman's side, on the actress side, it's going to be Glenn Close or Lady Gaga. It's whether they want to go with conventional or popular. And then obviously the supporting categories at this point look like it'll be Regina King and Masahiro Ali. Again, so but the big story is, I think you look at Roma and how that's going to impact the race, and we'll see. Again, at the SAGs, I think that's going to be big. We'll see if Roma or Green Book does really well at the SAGs, and I think then you know where we're going with this. But at least momentum-wise, but we'll see. But Roma winning was a big surprise, and that obviously is something to look for. And then I think the Bale win was a huge thing too. Also, I really like the fact that the comedy category got it right and gave the award to an actual comedy in Crazy Rich Asians. I thought that was nice. Instead of movies like Vice and that Green Book, which are more dramedies. But that was cool. But all right, so I got that out of my system. But there's one part of this this is the part I need to vent about. I can't vent loud because my voice is gone. That's why I've been so hushed tonight. I understand the Critics' Choice up until a few years ago was never broadcast. And it's been broadcast on various networks over the last couple of years, and some have done a very good job at it, and some haven't. But what I saw on Sunday night was one of the worst broadcasts of awards or of anything that I've ever seen in my life. And the awards were on the CW, which I should, again, I should expect, I guess, what happened. But how can you justify broadcasting an awards show and having commercials randomly pop up and interrupt speeches and parts of the award show, especially during big awards? Lady Gaga's up there doing a speech, and it cuts away to a commercial. Christian Bale's up there doing a speech, and it cuts away to a commercial. There's all kinds of sound issues. There's all like I get it. Sometimes you put these on random channels, and you can't control what local affiliates do. Something I get that, but then don't broadcast on a network like that. Just stream the damn thing. If you have no choice, that's horrible. And I know they sent a warning out to actors and that's saying that your speech might not be broadcast and all this other stuff. But come on, if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. That was an embarrassment. That whole broadcast was an epic embarrassment. And somebody should be fired, and the people should be ashamed of themselves for broadcasting that. Terrible. Terrible. So I probably would have ranted much louder, but I can't. So, that wasn't one of my better rants, was it, Mike?
I wasn't paying attention, but I heard that Roma is up, and then I realized, what the fuck is Roma? Which
probably means it's going to win, Mike.
I know Roma is a city. Roma has a team.
Roma
is how a pretentious American say Rome in America, even though in Italy it is definitely Roma.
I'm going to give this to you.
Roma is a type of tomato. What the hell is a Roma?
It's a foreign language film directed by and written by Alfonso Cuarón.
I think I've only seen one Alfonso Cuarón movie that I liked, and that had boobies in it.
You're nothing if not consistent.
So and E Tu Mama Tambien was actually an interesting movie with tons of boobies.
It was an
But
interesting movie.
why I don't care about Roma.
Well,
I've never heard of it. I'm gonna forget about it almost immediately.
that sounds like most
Yeah,
Best Picture winners.
yeah. So par for the course.
Anyway, but yeah, so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on how things go here as we go through the guilds, SAGs, and all get the SAG awards, all the other guilds, and we'll see what happens. Oscar nominations come out next week, so it should be interesting. All right, so I just wanted to briefly comment. All right, so now we got only one more segment for tonight, and that's the wrestling segment, which I have to say, I have to give WWE credit on something. They've had some good momentum both on Raw and SmackDown these last couple weeks. Things are happening. Every segment feels important. Guys that needed more intensity and more character development are getting it. Raw last night. Look, what they've done with Bobby Lashley over the last couple of weeks is great. It's a great turnaround. I'm not quite sure if I should have. I'm not quite sure they should have put the Intercontinental title on him, but I guess they need to feel like they need to give him something. And look, it wasn't clean, so it doesn't really hurt Ambrose too much. But still, it's pretty obvious that Vince and company wanted to kill the Ambrose Rollins feud completely. So that's what they did. So it is what it is. We'll see where they go with Bobby Lashley. Obviously, the Finn Balor Intercontinental title match with Ambrose, which I thought was going to happen, is off. Although maybe since they seem keen on putting Finn Balor up against in David versus Goliath matches, maybe that's what they're going to do with him at WrestleMania. Maybe they'll have him face Bobby Lashley instead of Dean Ambrose. Maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know. But last night seemed like Operation Get Braun Strowman out of the match and let's push Finn Balor, because that was the entire show. We started with Braun Strowman, who gave a much better promo. And we started with that, and they had the Vince segment, which was a stupid way to kind of get him out of the match, but I guess they had no choice. And then you had an hour's worth of everybody pitching whether they should be in the match, including Jerry Lawler, which is because they were in Memphis. And then you get what I thought was an awesome segment with Cena, Drew, Vince, Baron Corbin, who was the odd man out, really, if you think about it, and Finn Balor, where, Finn Balor called out Vince McMahon about never believing in him. And Vince had that weird line about how there's so much beef in the ring, which I thought was hilarious. But anyway, and you had the main event, which Finn won. He pinned John Cena, and then Cena put him over big time at the end of the match, which I thought was great. It's kind of like a passing of the torch moment. So that was pretty the whole night, other than Ronda and Sasha, which was a good segment. Nikki Cross with Natalya and Bayley. Nikki Cross was awesome last night. And you had these random appearances by some of the NXT talent. They did that on SmackDown tonight too, which I thought was funny. At times, somewhat awkward. A very weird Alexa Bliss moment. I guess they felt like they had to do something on Raw, and SmackDown continues to parade Mandy Rose around. So all in all, I thought it was a very good show last night. Now we could get in before we. I mean, I'll get your thoughts on what. I mean, I know you didn't watch Raw, but you can give me your thoughts before we do the Braun stuff, Mike. What do you think about what they did last night?
For Raw?
Yeah.
Let's see. I only watched bits and pieces here and there. They kind of went out of their way to make Finn Balor look very good. Cena had a good promo. Elias was definitely a highlight last night, 100%. I'm trying to think, but Finn Balor getting in and kind of winning the Fatal 4-Way, and he's facing Lesnar. It's a very interesting match. It's just, what are they going to do? Are they going to go ahead and do Brock versus Rollins now? Are they going to maybe transition things to Finn? It might be an interesting way of going about it. giving Finn Balor a chance to run and having the title on Raw for a fucking change would be nice. As for, but who knows? But Finn Balor winning the Fatal 4-Way just kind of shows they're looking to do something with him. He pinned Cena. Cena put over Finn clean. That was good. Even though he yelled at it, audibly, he yelled at "Take your time" to Balor before he went to the coup de grace.
Yeah.
Audibly. But then again, that's par for the course for John Cena. Half the time you can hear him yell exactly what's about to happen before it even happens. But that's just how Cena kind of does it. The Fatal 4-Way promo was good where Finn Balor coming out looking at Vince. Vince is like, there's a lot of meat in here. It's like Finn is arguably the second most jacked person in that ring. I mean, Drew McIntyre aside, I mean, John Cena's obviously jacked and cut up to here. But let's face it, Finn Balor's probably got more abs than John Cena does, arguably. So it was just a weird kind of line Vince McMahon threw out. But they made Finn look very good, and the entire night he pinned Jinder Mahal. He beat John Cena. He's going to wrestle Brock Lesnar in a few weeks. So
Yeah.
They went out of their way to make Finn look good. There's finally putting some hatred in the Ronda versus Sasha feud, and I don't care. Nikki Cross wrestled a little bit apparently yesterday, and does the Riot Squad have any credibility left?
Nope.
Well, Nikki Cross looked good though. That's what mattered. I guess that's what mattered in the end. They revealed the women's tag titles.
They look good.
Yeah, they look fine. What else did they reveal? They almost revealed Alexa Bliss a little bit. If you catch my drift.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted to be pervs. Did fine. People got a little bit out of it, I guess. Or left a little bit on the floor. Either way. As gross as that sounds, that's pretty much what that segment was for. Just fan service. But it was a pointless, awkward segment that could have been played better. But they did what they did. I don't know. Raw things happened on Raw in the Intercontinental title thing, yes, with the almighty Bobby Lashley pinning Dean Ambrose. He pinned Dean Ambrose. The Seth didn't even take the pin, which was surprising. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not that surprising. He's facing Brock at Mania.
Yeah. You just don't know if it's for the title or not. So excuse me.
Oh, it's gonna be for the title.
What?
Seth at Mania. It's gonna be for the title.
If you say so. But the almighty Bobby Lashley. I mean, yeah, they had to do something with him finally, and that's fine. They might do something. Go ahead.
He looked generally happy too.
Well, he probably was. It was something he's been wanting for a while, and now he's got some momentum going forward. So, and that's good for Bobby. And it kind of validates him a little bit. So if you're gonna take that title off him, you better be prepared for a war.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're giving Lashley an opportunity to test this out. Might as well.
Right.
And then Braun. I just don't think Braun's cleared.
Yet they had him lift the limo.
No shit. I mean, he could probably do that in his sleep.
It really depends on what you believe, because Meltzer's running around saying this was planned for weeks, that this was always the plan, that it came down to Braun's reactions had been cooling since Crown Jewel, and Vince didn't want him to take another loss, so they Now, if that's the case, then that would mean that they're going to go back to Strowman versus Lesnar at Mania or something like that. You would think.
Something similar, yeah.
So that might just be, hey, we just don't want it to happen at Rumble. We don't want it to happen again unless he's going to win. And I could see them being like, hey, we don't want him to win at Royal Rumble. We want him to win on a bigger stage. That's fine. But so if you're going in with the Meltzer report, then that's kind of what you think. Because why else would Vince be so protective of him? And look, the reason why his reactions have cooled is not because of the injury and not because of Crown Jewel. It's because you decided to turn the guy heel for 2 months without any meaning.
And you just kind of been rebuilding him since.
And then you just turn them. Yeah.
But then again, if you're believing the Meltzer bullshit, I mean that's kind of what it is at this point. It's the Meltzer nonsense. The only thing he's kind of getting right is AEW because that. Let's be honest here, he's just emotionally invested in AEW more than WWE at this point.
Right.
He's as much invested in AEW as he is in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He does not care about WWE at this point.
Right.
Look, Braun is just not cleared.
I think it's a combination of. I think it's one of those things where they just don't know if he will be for the Rumble. Mm-hmm. So rather than wait to the Rumble, they're like, you know what? We really don't. If he's not going to win this match, we really don't need him going out there.
Agreed.
So let's just take the extra time, make sure he's okay, give the match to somebody who was supposed to have this match at the Rumble last year, and also Finn Balor. Brock Lesnar's wanted the match with Finn Balor. So this serves two purposes because he does seem more motivated with the smaller guys.
Well, because the smaller guys are giving him more of a match.
So you're going to get a better match here, and the crowd's into it. Finn's wanted this match, and so it serves a number of purposes. So, and then it allows you to give Braun some extra time. Now, look, if Braun is healthy, if he's cleared, you could always have Braun win the Rumble and face Lesnar at Mania.
And you can kind of build that up a little bit, yeah.
So you have options here. So we'll see. I don't believe the Meltzer report because I think there is a part of it is related to the elbow.
Well, with Meltzer, I just think there's a kernel of truth there.
I think yeah.
The kernel of truth is I don't think they wanted to lose to Brock again.
Right.
But it's not the reactions. I think that part's the bullshit.
I think the fact that they had I think the injury made it easier for them to pull him from the match.
Yep.
Otherwise, they probably would have just sent them out there and just seen what happened. You know? Yep. So I think, but the injury makes it a justifiable thing. Like, oh yeah, you know, his elbow's still hurting. We don't know. This is gonna be like a game time decision. You know what I mean? So let's just pull it now, and this is the match. You know,
they can more easily have him at the Rumble match. It's easier for him to kind of win that way.
Yeah, exactly. So, and look, it wasn't the best way to take him out of the match. It was kind of funny because Vince just kind of looked at me. He's like, "This car ain't worth $100,000 or whatever it was." But you know, it's Vince, so whatever. Vince had a weird night. He had a weird night. You know, I'm gonna take away a title match from somebody that destroyed my car, even though 2 weeks ago I let AJ Styles attack me with no punishment. And later in the night, I'm going to talk about there being beef in the ring.
He loves talking about that beef.
So, yeah, but I'm looking at this GIF. I don't know if you're aware of this, but tonight, you know how they, like I said, they've been having the NXT stars on both shows, kind of just making random pop-up appearances. Well, I guess there was a segment tonight where Nikki Cross was like just standing behind a fence, like doing her usual Nikki stuff.
Yep.
And Rey Mysterio was walking out for his match, and he just kind of stares at her.
They did it with a lot of the SmackDown guys. Like EC3 is looking in a mirror.
Yeah.
And Samoa Joe's just kind of looking at him, just like, what the hell is going on? And just kind of walks away.
Speaking of Samoa Joe, he had a night.
Apparently,
Yeah, it looks like they're feuding him and Ali.
it's a good short-term deal.
Yeah, and it looked like it was a really good. He looked like a monster, which is what he should be looking like. And we also had apparently an amazing Rey and Andrade. Remember, he's Andrade now, Mike. They got rid of the rest of his name.
Sure. So
Yeah,
Andrade Cien Almas.
Vince got a hold of that name. But apparently Rey and him had another great match, and Rey put him over, which we all thought he would. So
Early favorite for TV match of the year.
yeah, so they're pushing him. I still would have rather just did this match at Mania, but
you still can.
you still can. I mean, people aren't getting tired of it. So let's see. Rusev Nakamura is official for the Rumble.
Yay.
There is AJ put Daniel Bryan through a table full of hot dogs. Becky Lynch and Asuka apparently had a really good segment. Asuka's match apparently lasted like 30 seconds.
Yep.
It's nice that she's getting booked the way she should have been booked. Let's see. Main event was Miz and Shane. Looks like they kind of did a comedy segment with the bar. A lot of cake involved.
Yeah, I heard SmackDown. It wasn't as good as Raw, but so there were the bullshit segments like that.
Movement, productive. Time to get to the Rumble at this point. Mm-hmm. That's really what it is. They pretty much built everything they can build at this point. Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers it. Obviously the big story yesterday was the Braun stuff, and word got out before the show even started that there was going to be some kind of angle. As soon as they said that, I kind of thought it was Braun Strowman. I couldn't think of any other match that they would change. What else? What are you going to? What else are you going to change? He was the one that had the injury, so it kind of made sense that would be, on Raw, that'd be the thing that they do. But, now there were some rumors today that Lars Sullivan was going to make an appearance tonight. He did not, so I'm starting to wonder if what's the deal with that again. He wasn't scheduled for last night, but apparently his status is up in the air. So we'll see. Everybody's got their eyes on that because if he doesn't show up, then that means that the plans with Cena are probably off. So.
Well, probably definitely off at this point.
I do have to say this though. You and me have been talking a lot about the potential for Mustafa Ali to face Daniel Bryan, right? And there was some, I won't say where I read these, but there was rumors today that they're not going with that match, that there's another match they're going with for Daniel Bryan, and there's some talk that somebody from Raw could be moving over to face Daniel Bryan. So when I heard that, my mind immediately sprung to three guys.
Okay.
Cena, Owens, or Zayn.
Okay.
Because you look at guys that don't have a program, and Cena and Bryan have always wanted to do that match again, and they can. It's an easy program to build because Cena be going for the record. So that one wouldn't require that much build and Cena to be around as much, right? And you got Owens and Zayn. Owens was turning face before he left, and Owens would be an immediate credible challenge. You just have him win a couple matches, and immediately you can just shove him right in there. I'd say Zayn's the long shot. Owens you could easily just throw at Daniel Bryan, and they have a history. They faced each other last year's Mania, so
it's also true.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking if that's something. If you want to solidify a Kevin Owens face turn, that would be something to look at too. Again, this is just speculation. I still think Ali's probably a prime candidate, if not the favorite. But there's rumblings that might not be what they do. So, also, apparently Batista's back on the table. They've offered him a big match. I do not know what that is. I'm going to guess I would assume it'd probably be the Triple H match again, but it almost sounds like it might be something different. based on the way they're wording it. So, but apparently he's back on the table, so that makes things interesting. Because they could. I mean, they're gonna probably have Cena. They're gonna have more. There's no doubt now they're gonna have Brock. They're probably gonna have Undertaker.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna guess and assume that Triple H will fall into play in some form because it's hard to imagine him not being involved.
It's definitely late enough so he could be.
Right. So you don't really necessarily need a name like Batista, but it does help. I mean, it's star power, and he is a huge name now, bigger than he ever was. So,
and let's be honest here, that WrestleMania comes a month before Infinity or Endgame, so
actually a couple weeks.
Good promotion.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, look, he's gone on record saying there's only like one match he really wants, but I'm sure you could talk him into something else if it's worth it.
Yep.
Like if there's a guy that if somebody that that he'd like to work with or something, then, but we'll see. Lots at that time of year, lots of rumors. There was before we finish off and wind down here, there was a debut on 205 Live tonight.
Who?
Hang on a sec. I just lost the story. I apologize. It came across my timeline and I lost it. Here it is, right here. I'm sorry. Humberto Carrillo.
205 Live?
Yep.
I have no idea who this guy is.
He answered a non-title open challenge
against Buddy Murphy.
And Murphy ended up winning the match, but it was apparently a really good match.
Well, that's not surprising. 205 always does good work.
And by the way, Cedric Alexander is funny because they announced that 205 Live is going to be after SmackDown again, right? Mm-hmm. And he posted on his Twitter feed, he's like, well, as usual, I'm finding things out on Twitter first.
That's usually how that works.
Yep. So, wow, Kevin Owens dropped a lot of weight.
So I heard.
There's a picture around, because I guess he did like an autograph signing.
Chicago this week.
Yeah, there's a picture coming around, circulating. Wow, he's sitting behind a table, so it's still hard to really tell, but you can see in his face and his arms. Mm-hmm. That doctor must have scared the crap out of him.
And honestly, it's
double knee surgery.
For the best, as long as it kind of just helps him kind of release some pressure on his back and knees.
Double knee surgery will do that to you.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a debut. I thought I'd bring that up. Okay, so I think we got through. I'm looking at my listing. I think we got through everything that we needed to get through. So that will be it for tonight. As always, the show might be over. It's not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to the show. Continue to have your voice heard. Send us your questions, reactions, comments, or opinions. And again, any submissions for the Film Awards can be done by email only, so please keep that in mind. Breaking news items or topics related to sports, entertainment, wrestling, wants to cover, you can send any of these things by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And as always, you can find us on Facebook to search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. And then make sure that you like our fan page once you're on it so you can interact with us and keep up with all the latest news and important developments related to the show. Again, follow us on social media so you can interact with us and get the latest information about the show. That's very important, so please keep that in mind. Like today, we moved the show up you got that information. That's the only place you can get that information. So very important to follow us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter. If you like to keep up with the show or look back at classic episodes, you have two ways in which to do that. You can either stream us anytime on YouTube to search In the Spotlight 411. And when you do, you'll be taken to our show page on YouTube. We will find every episode ever produced for YouTube. That's going way back to mid-October 2015, all the way up to tonight's current episode. Those episodes are available for you to stream anytime you want. So if you'd like to do that, head over to YouTube and just search In the Spotlight 411. If streaming is not your thing, maybe prefer to listen to us on the listen to us on the go, listen to us in general, or instant older episodes of the show. If that is what you want to do, then you can check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes, to search In the Spotlight 411. And when you do, you'll be taken to our show page on both of those sites, where you will find every episode we've ever produced in the 8 years we've been doing the show. So all of our Blog Talk Radio episodes, all of our Talk Show episodes, all of our YouTube episodes. YouTube episodes transfer into audio format for your screens. Every episode is on there in audio format for you to listen to anytime you want. All episodes listed in order from the most recent, that being tonight's way back to the oldest, way back in October 2010. So maybe you're a long-time fan and wants to check out an old episode from a few years ago, or a new fan wants to check out an episode like that for the first time, or you're just keeping up with current episodes, want to check out an episode again, miss an episode, whatever the case may be. You can do all this and more on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Search In the Spotlight 411. So Google Plus YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, and Google Plus YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, your ways to keep with the show. And look back at classic episodes. Search In the Spotlight 411. Again, search for In the Spotlight 411. I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, it's time for bed. Let's go.
Thank myself and our great show, pat myself on the back, and thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that will be watching or listening to this later, thank you to you as well. Sorry about my voice. Did the best I could. Hopefully it'll be better for Thursday because I got a lot of reading to do. But yeah, that is a big show on Thursday. The Film Awards nominations will be announced, and we'll also let you know on how you can participate in the live vote of the awards. Those are the awards that will be voted on live during the Film Awards in February. So a big show on Thursday. You want to make sure you tune in for that. And we will be once again starting at early time, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Probably, like I said at the beginning of the show, we're probably going to stick with that time for a little while. See how that works out. Just like last week, we kind of did combo shows, sports, entertainment, wrestling combo shows, both on Tuesday and Thursday. It seemed to work out well. So we'll probably stick with that for the most bulk of our shows going forward as well. So keep that in mind as well. So with that being said, as far as schedule for next week, we will be doing 2 shows. Tuesday will be a sports entertainment combo, but it will not be a wrestling. We will not have wrestling on Tuesday of next week because we'll be saving that for Thursday. We're doing actually no, we're probably going to switch things up. We'll probably do the Royal Rumble show on Tuesday, and do the sports and entertainment combo show on Thursday. So let me rephrase that: Tuesday wrestling show previewing the Royal Rumble, and then of course we'll do questions and comments from the fans, all that good stuff. And then Thursday we'll do all the other sports and entertainment stuff that we usually do. And that'll be the combo show. We'll switch things up that week. So that's a little bit of insight into next week. I'll talk more about that on Thursday to see what you all know. So anyway, that is it for tonight. Again, next show, Thursday, this coming Thursday, January the 17th. Broadcasting and streaming live here on YouTube at 9 o'clock Eastern time. We will announce the In the Spotlight Film Award nominations. You don't want to miss that show. Very big show. So until then, I hope you have a great rest of your night, great Wednesday, and a great Thursday. See you Thursday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Good night, everybody.